Hi, Melissa. I'm Christy. Nice to meet you. Sorry for the glare on my glasses. I'll try to keep that at a minimum for you tonight. And I also apologize if there's any noise. I've got laundry going, so it's gonna, I don't know, it kind of sounds a little weird. In a small apartment, so you can hear everything. But yeah, welcome to your reading. And I've actually been shuffling the cards for a little bit here, and I like to meditate on your name as I'm doing that. And it's kind of my way of centering and grounding and then asking the universe, God, higher power, whatever you want to name that person, place, thing out there in the void, what messages you should be receiving. And so that's kind of what I do when I'm shuffling. And then I usually just share what comes to me. So the disclaimer I usually give people is to, for any reading, and I think honestly this can be applied to anything that's like spiritual or intangible in nature, is to take what resonates with you and leave behind what doesn't. And resonation, if you can think about like a guitar string, or if you've ever opened up like the flap of a piano, when you strike one of the keys, it has that mallet that pounds on. There's like a coil, it's a like a or like a wire string, just like a guitar string. But when you pluck that or when you pound on that, it shakes and it makes a sound. So that's resonation. Like that's when something is resonating. It's like vibrating. It's striking a chord, you might say. That maybe that where that saying comes from. I don't know. But so if it's something that does that for you, and resonation in our bodies can be anything. Gosh, this is just because I'm looking at the screen. I'm so sorry. Resonation in our bodies can be, it's basically you're going to feel it. So um, it can be, you can feel anxious, you can feel sad, you can feel happy, you can feel like that expansion in your chest, you can feel contraction. It can be any number of things, but it's going to create a response. If it doesn't resonate, it's usually just falls flat. There's no noise, there's no vibration, you don't feel anything, and honestly, most of the time you don't remember it. So if something strikes a chord and you're like, "Oh, is that something I need to pay attention to?" Usually I recommend that people write those things down. So you can go through this reading and take little notes. Maybe hit pause right now and get a notebook. Take little notes of things that strike you or that get your attention. And these can be things that you may get immediate insight into. They may be things that you meditate on and get insight on later. I always invite questions or comments after the reading if you have them. I may or may not be able to answer them, because another disclaimer is I'm just the messenger. Usually I will tell people to take that question into their prayer or meditation time and see if they can get a better answer from their higher power guides, whatever names you want to use. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started. And yeah, I've been shuffling and I've already had a few cards that fell out, which usually means they want some attention and love. And so I've already pulled those. And then I'm gonna pull some cards for the rest of your reading here, and then see what comes up out of it. All right. So, kind of the first round of cards that I picked, this is the Nine of Cauldrons. And so these three, this is going to be kind of like past, um, present, which is the Queen of Pentacles, and then near future. Okay. And that's the Emperor. And And so there's kind of a sense that in the most recent future with the Nine of Cauldrons, it's been a sense there has been a space of opulence is a word that comes to mind, wealth or abundance. Um, it's a free flowing space. So this may be a space you're coming out of, um, or space that you've just enjoyed, kind of a place, a season of abundance. Um, yeah, I mean, like you can see these characters are like, I mean, they're chubby, like they're eating well, eating and drinking really well here, and then they've got even extra to spare. So that's kind of the most recent. Um, I think what I'm getting here with the series is that this season maybe was a little out of control. So it was abundant and it was fairly rich, and that doesn't have to be financial. So don't get stuck on the word rich being financial. It could be just like an influx of friendships, an influx of emotional growth and development, or triggers. Maybe like love, like mushy, kind of that like early love where it's like mushy gushy and you just want to spend all your time with that person. Like, think of abundance in those terms, but undisciplined. Okay, so we've got our chubby folks here, and it's because they've overfed themselves on all of these things, and so it's almost like a stomach ache. Like it's kind of the sense that I'm getting, like when you eat too much sugar or candy, there's like that stomach achy feeling. And then we're currently though, it's the Queen of Pentacles, which she's the response to that. She's very conservative. She is fairly well off. She's very well decorated and beautiful, but she is very, almost has this like, I don't know. I always get a sense of loneliness for her. So there's this potential for this is the pendulum swinging toward the other end of like must be hyper disciplined, must be very aware, keep ourselves very where here we were, with the Nine of Cauldrons, we're having fun, we're kind of letting it all flow. The Queen of Pentacles is a little bit the opposite. She's reining things in, she's creating boundaries, setting a schedule, a discipline of some kind. Okay, so that's kind of the current state of affairs. The near future is the Emperor, and this is a more masculine energy. This is an energy. It's kind of like head over heart. So a lot of thinking, but he's also the ruler. He's got. It's kind of it's like the Nine of Cauldrons and the Queen of Pentacles have been married together. So there's that sense of abundance and wealth and success, but it's in a very controlled, disciplined manner. And that's good. That's a good thing. It's coming into the sense of understanding what it means to manage and steward your abundance. Okay. Now we do have the Fool crossing over these things, and usually this lays across the Queen of Pentacles, and it bridges the gap between the Nine of Cauldrons and the Emperor. And what it can be, it can either be a bridge or it can be an obstacle. I'm really thinking this is a bridge, to be honest. Well, okay, actually, it's an obstacle. So the Fool here, I want to show you this card. This is the beginning of our major arcana, and the major arcana cards, they're pretty poignant. The Emperor is one of those as well. Usually their messages are a little bit stronger. They have more sway, more influence, and they're lasting. Whereas some of the minor arcana cards can be more temporary. So major arcana cards have a name down here, and then they have a Roman numeral. The Fool is 0. It's actually the very beginning of the major arcana card, and it's usually symbolic of beginnings or newness. So the Fool being someone who it's that beginning of things when you have that very steep learning curve sometimes, and you don't always know what you're doing. You don't always know how to get from point A to point B. Like you see the woman, she's covering one eye and she's got her hand out because she's like stumbling in the darkness, basically. You've got a baby down here touching fire. It's that innocent, ignorant state. Okay. And so this is kind of the obstacle toward getting to that emperor energy is things being new. So discipline being new, how to manage and steward your resources being new. What that means is there's going to be some mistakes. There's going to be some reaching your hand for the fire and getting burned. It's okay. All of that is normal. It's okay, and um, it's just a symptom of growing. So if you notice, like in this space, that as you're reaching toward that emperor energy of being much more disciplined and being balanced and being able to um, do do well with your resources, as you notice that you're making mistakes in that process, possibly getting burned, possibly feeling lost. um, I'm just kind of hearing that you to take that in stride and to remember that those are symptoms of growth, not symptoms of failure. um, and it can seem like one is pointing like that, it's pointing like that. Okay, if you've got that arrow, like the applausometer. Okay, do you remember those? Where it's like the applausometer, and the you'd applause and then like the arrow goes up. It can seem like your arrow is pointing toward failure, but it's actually pointing toward growth. So grace is really important in this phase. It's important to have grace for yourself as you're learning, and also to not let the mistakes scare you away from learning. Okay, so that can be a temptation too, is when you are reaching your hand out and you're finding you're getting burnt or that you're losing your way or any of that, then you start to fear the exploration. You start to fear the things that you're learning, like that um, you start to fear seeking out new resources. And so, what I'm hearing is to not let those mistakes and those little bumps in the road cause you to stop striving, and cause you to stop learning. Okay, so as you make a mistake, and you have more grace for yourself, you'll find that then you have more energy and more desire to keep seeking resources and truths and people to help. People to help is going to be a really big resource for you. Like keep just asking for help, and this is going to be a challenge because it's going to come back to admitting that you don't know how to get to where you want to be. And so it may be important to sit down and actually kind of evaluate your situation and say, I can sense that these are my weaknesses and I don't know how to overcome them. So let's say I'm going to just give an example for relational, like if you got this influx of relationships, setting relational boundaries may be an area of weakness, like maybe an area where you just don't know how to do that. And so seeking out experts that are experts in relational boundaries, whether that's YouTube videos or books that you read, or even seeking out a counselor to help walk you through that process, it's going to be important. And you may find that, like, as you put up boundaries, you lose relationships, or people respond poorly to that. And that's gonna, maybe I'm making the wrong decision. You're not. Like, boundaries are always good and healthy. It's just learning how to set those and knowing what's right for you is going to take time, and it's going to be a process of trial and error. So, and that's just an example. If that doesn't resonate with you, don't worry about it. If it does, great. You have an example there you can add to your list. But I sense that maybe it's not just relationships, like there's several areas here. Um, House and home come to mind, as does family. Um, there's children in this picture. Um, yeah, environment is huge for the emperor. Um, and maybe even career. I don't know if that's coming up. So, It's going to be a juggling act. Yeah, there are going to be times where you sense that you are on top of things. You've got things well managed, under control, and then you're going to slip, and it's going to feel like the juggling act is not working. And really, it all just comes back to get up and try again. Just get up and try again. You are in the Fool phase, and the Fool phase is one of learning and new beginnings and learning curves. And it just be encouraged. It won't always be this way. It won't always be. It won't always be so riddled with disaster. Is what it's going to feel like. Riddled with disaster. Um, Sorry for the noise again. It's my washing machine. I didn't realize it went through so many cycles of noise, but it's like you're hanging out with me. um, so I'm getting the sense that this may be you for a period of time, or there's gonna kind of be this feeling of energy. Um, and it's the Nine of Rods, and rods are generally accompanied with ideas or opinions, and she's circled by them, like they're circling her. Um, she's also kind of there's an innocence to her. There's a very feminine quality to her, even though um, really she's covered head to toe. There's apart from there's some characteristics that lend herself to be feminine, but she's not overtly feminine. So there is a sense of maybe some subtle feminine characteristics coming through for you that, and feminine, so masculine and feminine traits exist in all of us, regardless of our gender. And then feminine qualities are tend to be more nurturing, they're relational, they're warm, they foster connection. They're generally kind of like the feminine character, like archetypes are like the mother archetype, okay, like that, is just all nurturing and all encompassing. She's actually covered, so I'm getting the sense that this actually it may be a season for I wouldn't say veiling those things, but maybe it comes back to boundaries and just reining in some of the gifts that you've been letting flow out, kind of pulling those back closer to yourself. And the reason for that is because you're really going to see, this is what she's doing. She's testing the grounds. Like she's got her thoughts and her opinions ready. They are at the ready here if she needs them. And she is surrounding herself with them. But she's wary. Okay, so there's kind of this sense of like, pull back on all those things you've just been letting flow freely. Pull back on them and allow yourself to see what happens, okay? Because it's hard when you're just flowing out all of your energy, time, money, resources into relationships or into maybe a job opportunity or your career, something like that. It's hard to see where those things would best be distributed and what you should prioritize. And so part of this process is reining everything in and kind of sitting back and watching what happens, okay? What happens if you leave your job at 4:30 when you're scheduled to leave? What happens if you don't step up and take on extra projects? What happens if you don't bend over backwards to move your friend this weekend and then have friends over for dinner and then watch someone's kids? Like, what happens if you don't do those things for a period, okay? scale back and just see who comes through as being like, wow, we never realized how much we appreciated you, and we're so thankful that you're here, and oh my goodness, please don't ever leave. Or, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're not helping me, or kind of the people recognizing your value through this process, and then you recognizing people not valuing you. Okay, so that's kind of what it seems to be what's at play here. You are going to have the world at your fingertips, all right, as far as coming to this point. So it's an interesting space of recognizing, okay, I love this imagery. I mean, it may take a minute to get used to, but it's just really beautiful woman that is not afraid of her sexuality, or, just her body and exposure and vulnerability. But she has the resources of fire, the swords, which are words, cups down here, which are emotion, and then pentacles, which is kind of like hard work we do with our hands kind of thing. But there is this, you're coming into this place of recognizing your deep inherent value, and the fact that you are on par with this chick. Like, that is what's inside of you. You have the potential of all of these resources. You are connected to all of these things. This is about recognizing your inherent value. Is just the only thing that comes to mind. But that value being like off the charts, okay? And yeah, the next card is that too. It's the Magician, which is actually the second card in the Arcana. So it's evolution. Like, things are going to evolve. All right, you're going to have that Fool period, but things are going to evolve. You're going to come into a place of recognizing your value. And the Magician here is, let's see if I can get it so you can actually see, because I love this card. So we have this kind of crazy beast guy with antlers. He's got a unicorn behind him, Stonehenge, the power of lightning. He's working with runes so he can tell the future. Basically, what this card means is you have everything you need. You have all the tools at your disposal. And the Magician, I mean, he's called that because he can work with all these things, past, present, and future, and be in control of his existence. That doesn't mean he can control things happening to him, but he has all these tools for response and all these tools for navigating forward. So as you're recognizing your value, you're also going to be becoming cognizant of the tools that you have at your disposal. And this can also show up as a person outside of you. So this may be someone that you learn from. I'm actually kind of getting a strong sense of that. The Magician's actually going to come into your life and show you how to get these skills, how to recognize these skills, how to develop these skills that you need to move forward. Yeah, and so this is the resolution of this is the Page of Pentacles, and there's this youthful desire to learn. The page is usually kind of this, it's an adolescent, like innocent type figure that it's kind of like boyhood energy. Okay, so it's like, if you think about like young adolescents, like 12 and 13, how they have the energy of their childhood, but then they also are starting to get kind of the reasoning of their adulthood coming in, and it's this really beautiful blend. Like, teenage boys can be really obnoxious, but they are also really, they can be sensitive, but they can be strong. Like there's this really interesting combination of forces that I think where you're coming into this place is you're going through this transformation of um, moving from, having no boundaries, everything free flowing, everything, all this good stuff coming in and just going right out of your life. It's like you're not able, it's like a pot with a hole in the bottom. Like it never fills up. You're not able to like really, it's like you can you feel like you know that things are good are coming into your life, but you never feel like you can get a handle on them. Like they're all just kind of like always escaping your grasp. And so you're transforming through that into this energy of like being really on top of things, kind of hardlined is the emperor. He's kind of a hard ass, like, doesn't take no for an answer when he wants his way, kind of a thing. So pendulum swinging, right? But then you're moving more into this phase of, as you're processing through that, you're also moving into this phase of maturity and understanding, like, where your boundaries are, what's past the boundary, where you have what you have to give, what you don't have to give, what you want to conserve, what you want to hold back, what you want to share. It's kind of this really interesting place of exploring that. And where it's going to dump you off, like where this cycle is going to end, it's really positive because you're going to come back to kind of this youthful exuberance of it's like you've integrated those boundaries and those lessons into your being, and you trust yourself. You will be able to trust yourself, and then when you trust yourself, you'll be able to approach the world with this like kind of innocent, I'm ready to learn, I'm willing to learn. What does the world have to show me? And so in this process, it's like coming to trust that you have these resources and that the universe is on your side. So as you're going through this and you're appealing to your higher power, to the universe, to God, whoever that person or thing is, you're learning to trust that that power is on your side. It's for your evolution. It is not against you. And so even when you're learning things, that power is not against you, okay? It's simply redirecting you. So if you think about like being on a path, and I just had this image, and this may or may not mean anything to you, but like my sister showed pigs when she was in 4-H in high school. And when you're showing pigs, when you're taking them to the arena, so all the pigs, they have their little, thing, their pen that they're in. But when you want to get them to the arena, there's like all these directions the pigs can go, and they'll just go like down that row. And so you have to have people standing by with like these barriers. They hold the barrier and they put it in place. And all these people, they work together to get that barrier so that the pig goes from his pen to the arena. Okay, so what's happening is you're going to feel these barriers go down. You're going to try to go down a path and a barrier is going to be put in place. That's not because the universe or anyone is against you. That's because there's a better path for you. And so as you learn to trust that, as you learn to go, okay, this is not the path for me, instead of banging your head against it and like bloodying your knuckles against it, step back and go, okay, that door was closed for some reason. I don't even need to know why. I just need to know which door is open. And it may take a couple tries before you find the one that is right for you. But you're going to find it, okay? And in all of that, it's awakening your trust that someone or something is guiding you along this path and you can trust it. And so as that is integrating, so what happens is along this path, I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast. I just feel like stuff's coming to me very quickly and I need to get it out. But what happens to us along this path is like we have the lesson and we learn it, but that doesn't mean it's integrated into us. And so sometimes we have multiple goes at a lesson. And you may look at a lesson and say, didn't I learn this already? Wasn't I here already? And yes, you were to some degree. But it's like it's spiraling up. So you're going to circle around, hit that lesson. The beauty is you're going to go up the next level. You're going to hit that lesson again, but it's from a higher perspective. Okay, so you're going to be able to take all the things you've learned and apply them to that lesson. And every time you come to that lesson, you're integrating new parts of it into yourself. So eventually, it's just a part of who you are, right? Like a little kid who's learning how to walk, they get up, they fall down, they get up. They start to feel, the muscles start to remember what it means to stand. And so they fall less and less as they keep walking. And soon they walk without even thinking about it. Their muscles don't have to think about it. They just inherently remember. So you're going to be integrating all of these lessons into your being. And so at the end of this kind of season, and I don't know when that's going to be. I have a feeling it's a little ways off. Like you've got some work here that needs to be done. But you're going to come to a place where you just feel confident in the lessons you've learned, in the boundaries you've set, and you're going to have kind of this newfound energy for approaching the world. So this is an encouraging reading. That's the beauty. There are going to be some obstacles, but what I'm getting is that this is nothing but empowerment and evolution for you, and growing. There'll be some intense growth. But it's all pointing toward growth. Just remember that. It is not pointing toward failure. It is already all pointing toward growth. So I'm getting the sense this is the time to stop. So that's what I'm going to do. It's also, we're at about the 30-minute mark, which is how much the full reading is. So I hope this was fruitful for you. I hope this was helpful to you. Please let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, I will try to answer them. And if I can't, I will give you hopefully I can give you some direction on what to do with your questions. So thank you for letting me share. I hope this serves you well and that this video finds you well. And please give Julie all my love.